Everybody, and thank you for joining us today for the 6th installment of CentriNet's 7-week series on the building blocks of virtualization. I'm Valerie Longo, your host, marketing coordinator here at CentriNet, and today we are excited to have the Wyse Chief Marketing and Strategy Officer, Jeff McNaught. He is an authority on virtualization and thin computing, and we're very excited to have him here today. Just a quick housekeeping note, we will be answering questions at the end of the session, so if you have any questions during the presentation, please use the question box on your GoToWebinar panel. Also, we are recording today's webinar, so it should be available on our website tomorrow morning, along with the recordings from all of the previous sessions of the Building Blocks series. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Jeff. Welcome.
Hey, thanks, Valerie, and thanks to all the CentriNet team for making this possible. And thanks to all of you for dialing into this webinar. What I'm going to talk about today is virtualization, and I'm going to use the term cloud client computing, and I'm going to define that for you. I'm going to talk about some of the endpoint strategy points that you'll want to consider when you think about rolling out a virtualization environment, what the benefits of these are and what they mean. And then I'm going to give you a specific example of a new product on the market that is very different than products that you may have heard of in the past, just to give you a sense of how things have changed so dramatically in the last 5 or so years in this space. So I think most of you know that one of the biggest reasons that companies consider using a virtualization environment, whether it's considered presentation virtualization or virtual desktop infrastructure or cloud computing, is to get away from a big bad device that causes businesses a lot of problems every day. And that product, that device you're probably pretty familiar with, and that's called the PC. So what we're really wanting to do is get away from the PC and all of the things that are associated with the challenges that it presents. So having to do upgrades and constant maintenance and maintaining storage and protecting it from viruses and keeping the hard drive clean and running and all of the licenses and all of these sorts of things that are associated with that particular endpoint choice. Virtualization gives you the opportunity to use a new kind of device, a simpler, easier to manage, easier to maintain device, and not only do that, but provide users with a way to get access to information anywhere and anytime. So it's really a big improvement. Well, let's talk a little bit about this concept called cloud client computing, because it's an umbrella term that includes many terms you may have already heard. When I use the term cloud client computing, I'm really talking about the intersection of 3 types of technologies: cloud computing, desktop virtualization, and unified communications and unified computing. These 3 technologies combine to form a set of benefits that you see on the screen there, dramatically lower total cost of ownership for an enterprise, anything from a government to a classroom to a small and medium business, dramatically improved security, privacy, and compliance, easier management, faster deployment, a much lower energy utilization, and a number of other benefits that come along with green IT, and a much easier to manage strategy around disaster recovery and business continuance. And I'll explain all of these in some detail in the next sort of slides. But when you think about cloud client computing, what we're really talking about is a strategy that combines various technologies to deliver a great value to the enterprise deploying it. So let's talk a little bit about what that really means in sort of nuts and bolts. When you look at a PC today, you have essentially 4 components that make that solution up. You've got the hardware, of course that's the PC hardware itself, and the Intel processor or what have you. You have the operating system, that's typically going to be a Windows operating system, whether it's XP or Windows 7. You'll have the applications that you use every day, and then you'll have your content, your files, your personalization, the things that make your computer your experience. That's the wallpaper with the kids washing the dog that you sort of know every day. So what we're going to do is we're going to sort of break the shackles of that PC environment, and we're going to, instead of storing all that on the PC, we're going to put together a server and a network, and we're going to call that a cloud. Now, many of you would call that a data center or the server room or that weird box over in the corner, but we're going to call that a cloud. And that cloud can be a private cloud, which means that it exists in your building. It could be a public cloud, which means it exists in some other company's building, and you might be providing or purchasing service time on that server. Or it could be what we call a hybrid, which means a little bit of both. But for now, let's talk about this as the server that's in your data center. Now, cloud client computing takes three components of that PC model and moves them to the server. So we move the content, we move the applications, and we're going to move the operating system to the cloud. Now the benefit of that approach is that it's going to be a lot easier to patch and manage the operating system when you're only doing it one time, and the benefit is delivered to all of the different workers. So even though my graphic shows one PC on the right and one server on the left, think of that one PC on the right as hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of endpoints, because that's what this architecture is about delivering. And so we've moved the content, the applications, and the OS to the servers, and that's going to deliver a whole series of benefits that I'm going to talk about in just a moment. And then next we're going to say, all right, what do we do with that device that is at the other end of the wire, because there's a better way to go. And so what we do, and what other companies like us do, is we take hardware and we take a little bit of software and we glue that together. And what that becomes is something that we call a cloud client. And so that replaces the idea of the personal computer at the area. You can see a smaller, simpler device there instead of the bigger, bulkier PC. And that becomes the access point that you work behind. So it's the same as your PC. Your same kind of display, same kind of experience. Everything looks identical to the PC. But now you have a device that's essentially getting all of its information from the server. And so when you do this right, there's a protocol that connects your server to your cloud client, and that protocol makes the display work. And so that gives you all of the visual support. It makes your USB peripherals work. It makes your sound work. All the things are managed over a protocol. Now, if you select the right endpoint strategy, that endpoint is going to work whether you have a wired network or whether you have a wireless network. And so it's best to select one that has lots of flexibility built into it. Now, this model gives you another benefit, and many IT departments consider this critically important, and that is the ability to decide where the apps execute. Because in many cases, moving all of the applications to the server is the right answer and the immediate step toward these benefits I'm going to tell you about. And in some cases, you can't move all of the apps. And when those apps won't move, you have two choices. Either do nothing or move that app to the endpoint device and execute it there. So Wyse's cloud client computing strategy gives you that flexibility that you might frankly not get with other models. The other benefit you get with this approach is that when you've got your endpoint device accessing this information from a server, and you can do it wirelessly or wired or even over the cellular network, you now have the ability to use a lot of different types of devices as the endpoint. So you could use a repurposed PC, for instance, with just some new software to become the endpoint to your newly virtualized environment. You could use a mobile PC, or you could use a mobile thin client, which is a lighter, more secure version of a mobile PC. And many of you probably want to consider using something like a Slate, whether it's an iPad or an Android-based device, to be able to create new sorts of applications and opportunities to interact with your data. And you could use the Slate device in many different ways, including a doctor in a healthcare environment, or even what we call a line buster. That would be somebody who's standing in the line at your favorite restaurant and taking your order before you get to the counter. And for ultra-mobile folks, you might want to try to get access to that data over your cell phone or your iPhone or your Android device, etc. And so cloud client computing gives you the benefit now to use a variety of different endpoint devices that make sense for your work style and your location. You're not limited to just that one PC that you always have to be sitting at. And that was a real concern for a lot of folks, is that when they were working, the only way they could work was to be in the office or to have a notebook in their lap. Cloud client computing erases those shackles and lets you access in a way, your data and your work in a way that makes sense for you, whether you're at the office or at the airport, or where I like to be, at the beach. Now, so once you have this technology in place, there's more to be told to the story that makes this even more exciting. Today's thin client devices, in fact, are capable of doing much more, and in fact can deliver full voice, data, and video at levels of quality never delivered before in the market. And when we build this kind of quality